YouTube is a website characterized by unusual people and even more unusual foreheads. For the longest time before I started consistently making content and gaining a following here on the interwebs, I specialized in pretty much every type of media this website had to offer. And by that, I don't just mean the expected stuff, like maybe the vloggers, or the makeup channels, or commentary channels, or gaming channels, or even just art channels. I mean the weird, incredibly niche stuff. Things no rational person would consciously seek out, rather stumble upon accidentally. As long as there was something to leave on autoplay, I allowed it to do so. And let me tell you, I've had some pretty interesting experiences on the website as a result. Today, I wanted to talk about one particular brand of obscure content which I've been diligently studying as of late. It's a genre of videos universally recognizable by one inconspicuous link. And by that, I am of course talking about Gacha Studio videos. I first chanced upon a gacha video some odd weeks ago when a video simply titled Broken, Season 1, Episode 1 inexplicably appeared in my recommended feed. Naturally, I was curious. I'd seen my fair share of unusual thumbnails in the past, but something about this one tickled every one of my unusual fancies. The out-of-context screenshot, the obviously template anime chibi characters, the tacky name tags, and perhaps most importantly of all, the innumerable quantity of questions I had. What was the significance of the gray eyes? Why are the line widths of the character models glaringly inconsistent? And, of course, what the hell had I been watching that led me to this point? Naturally, I was unable to resist temptation. Needless to say, watching the video left me with many, many more questions than answers. So, it's about this dysfunctional family who has a child. At least I'm pretty sure it is. Honestly, that's about as much as I could get out of it before the daughter metamorphoses into a demon in one of the most moving, high-intensity scenes in all of cinematic history. Though it was fun while it lasted, following my experience with Broken Season 1 Episode 1, I regretfully ended my investigation for the time being. I must have convinced myself that it was nothing more than a fever dream, because soon I was resigned to my life as it had once been. I didn't stop to think about the possibility that there might be something missing from my life for hours, maybe even days, but then the impossible happened. Lightning struck twice. The abused child became a... Princess, Part 1. It was an impossible coincidence. Not only did I happen to stumble across the same exact strange community again, but another video about child abuse? Rarely had the YouTube recommended feed worked so immediately and specifically, and so I was convinced that this was not just some weird, throwaway brand of video to laugh at with your friends, but perhaps an orchestration of a higher being. Fate, perhaps. Nonetheless, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't acknowledge this video. So I did. My recommendations were absolutely swamped with them afterwards. My bratty and spoiled sister, number 1, Season 1, Gacha Studio, Heart. My boyfriend is a vampire, Gacha series, Episode 10, Season Finale. Jealous of my sister, Episode 1, Gachatubers. Basics in Behavior, Gachatubers, GBMB, BBEAL, which I'm guessing means Balti's Basics in Education and Learning. Plus, asterisk spoiled brat, asterisk plus, Gachaverse mini-movie. Cancer, a Gacha series. Living Situation, Gacha Studio, Undertale. And, of course, such wonderful classics like Sad Suicide Story, Gacha Studio, Try Not to Cry. And trust me, that's not even the half of it. Welcome to YouTube Safari, the series where I describe and analyze various genres, content creators, and videos from just under the surface of the YouTube algorithm. Today, I want to talk to you all about Gachatubers. This isn't a cringe compilation, it's an examination. If you recall back to the videos I listed, you might have noticed a few differences between them, most notably the fact that some referenced Gacha Studio and others Gachaverse. This is because all of these videos are created on two different programs, the more recognized one being Gacha Studio, and the latter Gachaverse. Both of these games are incredibly similar, with the major difference being that Gachaverse is still in development and is notably worse, in the model aspect anyway. Both games were made by the same studio, a company called Luname. Luname specializes in making these gacha games. They seem to have started the gacha series with a game called Anime Gacha, which is a free collect-em-all for weeb children. The goal is to pull characters by random chance in hopes of finding new units or leveling up your pre-existing characters, and then to battle bosses with them, presumably for more in-game currency. But the game is supposed to be free? I'm not completely sure. Pretty much all of these games implement a similar mechanic, either in the gacha-ing or the fighting raid bosses, although they are far from the highlight of any gacha game experience. Aside from Anime Arcade, which is just a series of mini-games which includes characters from their previous gacha games, Luname has put out various incredibly similar titles like Anime Gacha, Gacha World, Neko Gacha, Cat Collector. You know they're weebs when they include the word cat in the title but still feel the need to put Neko in the name. Gacha Studio, Gacha Resort, Pocket Chibi Anime Dress Up, Gachaverse, the esteemed Meme Gacha, and, of course, Anime Fidget Spinner Battle. Now, you're allowed to like what you like, and I'm not going to single you out for it, but I feel like these games are appealing to a very specific, bottom-of-the-barrel demographic. This, of course, being the 12-year-old anime kids. You've got chibis, unnecessary use of the word neko, a multi-game universe populated with what could only be described as the most bare-minimum anime trope characters imaginable, and, most importantly, the anime dress-up aspect. All of these traits are things which are vaguely anime-related and which are marketed to be extremely attractive to young kids. I mean, Anime Fidget Spinner Battle really speaks for itself. The word they use to name the universe itself, gacha, is even a derivative of the word gachapon, a capsule toy from Japan sold in vending machines. In gaming, it's come to mean, essentially, a loot box. One thing I can say is admirable about Luname is the fact that they are incredibly active in their community. They're always reposting fan art, animations, messages, and on their YouTube channel they promote Gachatubers, even if a lot of those Gachatubers are more popular than them. As far as I'm aware, they're mostly just a group of devs and artists who happen to be anime fans, and seem to be trying to tell some sort of story through their games. They're not a very professional team, and sometimes the fact that they have so many evidently child fans that they interact with feels a bit creepy, but I can appreciate them for being present and receptive to their fanbase. That being said, the actual in-game canon is far from what made Gacha Studio, and subsequently Gachaverse, popular. In fact, I'd say it takes a side to the most unquestionably popular facet of the gacha fandom. This leads me to the actual subject of today's feature, the wild and wonderful world of Gacha Studio videos on YouTube. I think it's safe to assume that most of us, at some point during our youth, have fantasized about creating our own media franchise. Whether it be in the form of a book series, a TV series, a movie, a comic, or, with increasing popularity as of recent years, a web series, the expression of one's creativity, and the potential to substitute it for standard labor, is an especially appealing interest for many adolescents. While I haven't really maintained the same ideas and concepts as I had when I was 6 or 7, I'll admit that I even still cling on to the naive belief that one day I could create my own series of some sort. If only. With the advent of platforms like YouTube, the enticing promise of creating a web show or comic is now way more appealing for younger kids than ever. There are so many routes and options you can take. The more dedicated youngins might try their hands at animation or a much more simplified version of it. But there are all sorts of other methods and practices these kiddos will apply to communicate their stories. They'll use toys, maybe string together clips in Movie Maker, or quite possibly, and this is my favorite, record videos of their characters acting out scenarios in games like Animal Jam, Roblox, Minecraft, or Club Penguin. While all of these things are fairly easy and accessible for children, I think it's safe to say that these methods all pale in comparison to Gacha Studio. Gacha Studio is sickeningly convenient. It has appealing anime chibi characters and a wide variety of clothes and hair pieces and accessories, which aren't all compressed correctly, but do the job well enough. I guess the developers couldn't be bothered to add a download image option since you're forced to screenshot whatever it is you want to capture, but this, although laughably unprofessional, is far from an issue to the people using the app. Gacha Studio has essentially laid out all the tools you need to make it happen, and the only thing the user needs to apply is their dialogue and maybe a couple taps to make things final. It might sound like I'm ripping on this stupid app, but I think it's cool that kids have the potential to get their ideas out there and are given the tools to do so. I just wish it was anything other than what they end up making because, as I'm planning to get to in a moment, there's a lot to talk about here. Another thing about Gacha Studio videos which makes them incredibly appealing to children and all the more unusual to me is the sheer lucrativeness of them. When you look up Gacha Studio on YouTube and filter the videos by the most popular, the most viewed Gacha Studio video, according to YouTube's algorithm, has 3.4 million views. 3.4 million! And the thing about all these videos is, there is very little variation in quality between the most popular Gacha Studio YouTubers and the least. In the animation meme community, aka the Musical.ly scene for slightly more talented furries, at least you can clearly see where the divide is between the polished professional animators and the kids recording their phones on Flip-A-Clip. That's not to say that the kids who record their phones on Flip-A-Clip are all bottom-of-the-barrel terrible content creators, but there is clearly a barrier between the more recognizable names in the group and the infinite sea of others. When it comes to Gachatubers, that line doesn't exist. You can take a video with a few thousand views and compare it to any one of the most popular Gacha Studio videos on YouTube, and there won't exactly be a very big difference. I mean, The Abused Child Becomes a Princess mini-movie, a gacha video with 2.3 million views, still has a Cyberlink Power Director logo in the corner of the screen. Pretty much all of the most viewed gacha videos still have the same royalty-free music or nightcore tracks as the unpopular ones. Theoretically speaking, anybody could become a popular Gacha Studio creator. The Gacha Studio Creator Sphere is a community run by the audience for the audience. It's a self-curated community. I haven't seen a single monetized Gacha Studio video, so I highly doubt the people making these are above the age of 18. It's a network of highly successful content being run right under everyone's noses. One aspect specific to this community of Gachatubers that I find particularly amusing is the odd relationships they form between themselves and their fellow creators. Most Gacha Studio videos have comment sections absolutely flooded with generously distributed hearts and pins, and an ocean of gacha profile pictures as far as the eye can see. These Gachatubers not only frequently interact with each other on platforms like Amino, but in some cases they include their friends' OCs in their videos, alongside their frequent shoutouts and other various promotions. Now, I could be wrong about this, but I speculate that the majority of these kids commenting and engaging with these gacha videos, although I don't doubt that they're at least appreciative of the media in question, are more interested in promoting their own namesakes and climbing up in the ranks than they are appreciating their favorite gacha creators. It could be just me, and maybe all of these little weebs are actually the pinnacle of innocence, but in my eyes it seems like a scheme to network, make friends, and vigorously promote yourself. It's like those My Little Pony roleplay channels who form long, extensive lists of friends and mutuals who start drama with each other whenever their OCs aren't included in each other's videos. The lack of clear direction and standards among creators leads to there being an unclear hierarchy, with everyone clamoring to be the next big Gachatuber phenomenon. But then again, that theory could be completely inaccurate, and they all really are just one big friend orgy. I highly doubt it though. So what exactly are these Gacha Studio videos about anyway? I've been referencing them, but I haven't really explained thus far what Gacha's content actually entails. Although the community is limited, it transcends clear barriers, with content creators making videos in the style of animation memes to music videos. Gachaverse has very recently added animated sprites to their library, which makes it easier for kids to pretend to put effort into their work. It looks considerably better than unmoving stills synced up to music, but it's still not much of an improvement. While each of these content styles is perhaps equally prevalent, the most popular videos to make, as I've observed, are web series. In a lot of ways, gacha series are very similar to the anime they were probably inspired by. Like many anime, gacha series often boast a variety of unique, unconventional ideas. Unfortunately, also like many anime, gacha series often suffer from issues of heavy repetition and very similar use of stereotypes and structure. Pretty much every single Gacha Studio video I've ever watched for research has had at least one common plot thread with another. Pretty much every Gacha Studio series centers around high school or kids in the high school age. They all tend to involve a female protagonist who is special in some way, shape, or form. Additionally, the protagonist almost always has to have the absolute worst life possible. There's all sorts of bullying, abuse, physical ailments, disabilities, death, and trauma. You really get the full package. Gachatubers seem to have a really weird fascination with abuse. Perhaps the even more interesting part of their fixation is the very dramatic exaggeration of this mistreatment, and the very narrow scope of it all. A vast majority of the abuse stories featured in these series are focused around looks. Even more interestingly, it is almost always women who are executing this abuse. Problematic mothers, sisters, popular girls in school. In this world, if you're a girl, you're either for the protagonist or you're against them. The few friendly female characters in these videos are the ones who are fully and wholly supportive of the main character under any circumstance, and will inevitably sacrifice almost any character interactions in favor of letting the protagonist monopolize any and all love interests. But returning to the issue of abuse, by God, is there a lot of it. One rather popular subgenre of Gacha Studio videos is the Hated Child series, and almost all of these follow the exact same formula. You can just look at the thumbnails and they're all almost identical. So, in the Hated Child genre, a couple will have 2 baby girls. The mother will immediately decide upon their birth that she prefers one daughter to the other, and it's pretty much always on the merit that one child is prettier or cuter than the other. The father will either favor the second child or be neutral and ultimately possess no authority in the relationship. The series that I think best summarizes this trope is Purple Heart 13's show, literally called The Hated Child, which currently stands at over 1.9 million views. This thing was published in July of this year. That's insane. But anyway, in The Hated Child, the mother favors one sister, Ember, over Diana for some reason. What is it with these mothers and picking favorite children? So, the mother... Okay, I just have to bring this up here because it confuses the hell out of me. So the children are just learning how to walk, right? And they can also speak, so I'm guessing they're, 2? Then they're sent off to bed, which is normal, except for the fact that immediately the next morning they've both grown hair. And the mother gives Ember a shirt that exposes her bra? They're 2 or 3 years old. They were still using pacifiers. Apparently a day later, they can also eat chocolate and sandwiches. The pacing in the series is incredibly poor, and I'm not trying to rag on Purple Heart for this. Exposition and character building is difficult to fit in a 7-minute video where each slide takes up about 7 seconds, but you could have at least had something like a montage of these kids' lives so that things didn't just happen without any context or reason. The series starts out with a collection of events from when these children are toddlers, stuffs in as much obvious abuse as possible, but then immediately time skips in the next episode to when the girls are both 15. Gacha videos tend to be pretty awful with their pacing, but I'm getting way off topic. Back to The Hated Child. So in this series, the mother and the favored sister are repeatedly aggressive to Diana, being absolutely obsessed with the fact that Ember is prettier than Diana. Ember, who is originally empathetic to Diana for 1 day, eventually becomes so dependent on her mother in the way that she cherishes her that she escalates to becoming physically abusive to her sister. Eventually, the father intervenes and divorces his wife, which leads to him moving out of the house, getting the mother and Ember evicted without them knowing, so at this point they're essentially homeless, and Ember eventually getting socially ostracized by her crush. So, literally having nowhere to live isn't bad enough, and they needed to have her be bullied, basically. Various other hijinks ensue, including a kidnapping, the mother and Ember getting arrested, and eventually Ember and her bully friend getting into a lesbian relationship. Not gonna lie, that was probably the best part of the entire show. After that, there's an additional few episodes where the show is just dragged on for longer than it has to be, with a jailbreak and an implied sex scene between the protagonist's best friend and her boyfriend. I honestly don't know if Purple Heart knows what Netflix and chill means, but the core intention of the original season is clear. It's about Diana living an unfortunate life and the powers that be exacting revenge on all those deemed responsible. Laura, Ember, and Luna are all severely punished and end up in prison. Although Ember and Luna get their shot at redemption, there is still a heavy consideration of the element of revenge, which counteracts the forgiving and sweet nature the protagonists are portrayed to have. While most gacha series have an abused child storyline interwoven into them, whether through bullying or family ties, not all of them fall into the hated child category. Another heavily exploited topic among Gachatubers are the disabled. There's blind girls, mute girls, deaf girls, and a whole lot of them at that. Like the Hated Child series, these blank girl videos all portray very exaggerated and unrealistic patterns of abuse. For example, take a series called That One Mute Girl by Cute Spud. In That One Mute Girl, we learn rather early on that the protagonist's younger sister died in a car because her parents neglected her and she suffocated. The protagonist's parents then proceed to order their daughter to never tell anyone about this. It seems reasonable and that she was stunned into silence by the trauma of the event, but then, in a later episode, it is revealed that she is actually a mute because her mother and father sewed her mouth shut so that she couldn't tell the truth to anyone. I guess even after the threads are removed that somehow her voice was damaged? Either way, this is an incredibly unrealistic scenario, which while certainly attention-grabbing, helps to ruin the series' otherwise semi-believable slice-of-life atmosphere. That one mute girl also showcases a great example of the bully revenge mentality I mentioned earlier, but I want to focus more back on the abuse side of the story. In both the Gacha series I've talked about so far, the examples of abuse are undeniably excessive and unfortunate, but somehow, at the same time, incredibly naive and unrealistic. The abusive characters are bad just because the story demands them to be, and in every situation the villains are comically aware of the harm that they're causing. In every scenario, the protagonists are unquestionably good, the antagonists are unquestionably evil, and the authors sacrifice all personal conflict in favor of relentless external pressure. There's very little room for nuance and characterization, but the most we get being something along the lines of the redemption of Ember and the hated child, although this plot point was far more of a way to ensure a happy ending for the protagonists than an actual character study. The subject of abuse is treated by these gacha videos so bluntly and without any of the respect or subtlety that it deserves. Characters who do the abusing are motivated simply by the fact that they're bad people. On top of that, the abuse that they inflict is always really on the nose. Singling out a child and telling them they aren't pretty enough, physically harming siblings and children. Rarely do these videos acknowledge other forms of abuse like emotional manipulation, abuse by neglect, or sexual abuse, with the only exception for the third being the aptly titled suicide story Gacha Studio, which, as anyone could reasonably guess, handles the subject as more of a gimmick to draw a reaction from the viewer than an introspective observation. While I will admit that this particular video tries a bit harder to be accurate than something like Sad Suicide Story, Gacha Studio, Try Not to Cry, where one of the catalysts for this girl's suicide is literally the fact that Baldi from Baldi's Basics is her teacher, the former is still shockingly exploitative for what it is. Granted, I don't think that any of these things come about from the creators meaning harm with their videos. Most of the people behind this are, again, almost certainly kids. When I was younger, I too had a fascination with the edgy and obscene, although my limited knowledge of the world, sex, and the human psyche prohibited me from expressing it in any way other than terms and displays which were obvious even to an ignorant child. If anything, it just makes it more humorous than shocking or uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean there aren't still worrying implications present here. The almost sadistic desire for revenge among these creators is kind of concerning. The exaggerated feminine stereotypes of mothers, sisters, and popular girls all hinge on a careful balance, a hierarchy of objective beauty, societal acceptance, boyfriends, and jealousy. The overwhelming abundance of shallow feminine portrayals and the constant girl-on-girl suppression in these gacha stories could be representative of a deeper issue, one of envy and superiority, or it could just be an object of unusual fascination for Gachatubers. Nonetheless, the separation of females into obvious categories, all with starkly assigned moral stances, is unavoidable. So, we have some of the more curious oddities identified and listed, but that still leaves a lot of questions unanswered. Why, of all things, did the gacha community turn into this? While I highly doubt anyone can say for sure, I'd propose that it all starts with Luname. The combination of their unprofessionality, their shallow representation of anime, and their appeal to children has made a breeding ground for these psychotically creative young people. The lack of standards or truly inspirational figures for these kids to look up to leads to a mess of everything imaginable being permitted to become obscenely popular. I don't think it's offensive or demeaning to say that younger kids like self-insertion and fan service. You can show most kids just about anything and they won't be upset at the lack of stimulation or complicated moral dilemmas. And, of course, that's not to say that they should be. You can appreciate media in whatever way you want to, and your opinions about it are equally as valid as anyone else's. The main problem with this is the fact that in such an environment of only kids, who in most cases only want to see what they're familiar or comfortable with, will inevitably promote mediocrity and sameness. Kids take inspiration from each other and focus their creative efforts less on solving intricate issues and making meaningful commentary or characters, instead occupying themselves by telling the same story about outcast girls getting revenge on everybody else who is more successful than they are over and over again. Each story will compete to exaggerate their misfortune more and more, turning abuse, depression, and oppression into nothing more than a tag to arouse shock and pity. All the while, their aggressive outlook towards the people around them, at least in their gacha videos, becomes emphasized, with jealousy and bitterness fueling series-long revenge plots against the pretty, social girls in society. It's a cycle of unfairness, a cycle of demeaning and self-satisfaction of the worst, most reprehensible desires in our souls. But then again, what kid hasn't thought this way at one point? What outcast kid hasn't looked at someone in the popular circle with longing and jealousy? As disconcerting as these videos may be, in 99% of cases, these kids will be scheduled to grow out of their gacha phases within the next few years or so. If not, they'll probably just become the webtoon artists of the world, expressing themselves in these same ways for the same people throughout their early lives. There's no point in bullying them for it, or being mean about it. These are all just young people creating the things they want to and expressing their creative sides. For every troubling Gacha Studio video, I'm sure there's another one expressing a truly wholesome, unique, and passionate idea. In the meantime, I do definitely recommend watching these YouTubers. If you're looking for a quick laugh, there are endless Gacha Studio series for you to explore. Besides, with every view and like, you'll be supporting the growth of a young content creator. They deserve all the extra support they can get, even if they are just making exploitation gacha revenge videos. Wow, so that's the end of the video. This one took a really long time to make, partially because of school and partially because I've been looking into these videos for a long time. I've wanted to talk about this stuff ever since I first started watching gacha series. Also, if I sound weird right now, that's because I'm currently sick, and this is the best my voice has been pretty much all day, so I'm sorry if that was off-putting. Additionally, I'd like to thank Kuro the Artist for helping me out with editing this. He's a friend of mine and a really swell guy. He makes a lot of interesting and in-depth cartoon videos, and he has a comic that I'd totally recommend checking out if you were ever into shows like Ben 10, Danny Phantom, Invader Zim, and basically any early 2000s nostalgia trip action titles. It captures those vibes pretty much perfectly, all while appropriately amping up the content, pun completely intended, a good 5 years in maturity. The next issue will be coming out soon as of writing this video, and I even got to contribute to one of the pages, so be sure to check it out and look for my bit in there. Thank you so much to everyone for watching the first episode of YouTube Safari. I've been really excited to start the series because I've got a lot of interesting genres I'd like to share with you all. Let me know how you felt about this video and what you want to see in the future. I'll be making this in tandem with my Blank Sucks series and also my one-off video essays, so don't worry, neither of them will be going anywhere anytime soon. With that out of the way, if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. I'm a small channel and every bit of support helps, if you have the time of course. And be sure to follow all of my social medias if you're looking for art updates about my boring life, or if you just want to hang out in my Discord server. As always, I love and cherish you all, you are like my little cherubs, and I hope to see you guys soon for the next video. Stay cool.